What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. This here is Legitical Response. We cover political news. We keep you up to date and keep you informed with everything that the government does, because the government is out of control, y'all. Congress has allowed the federal government, our wonderful bureaucracy that we have in this country, to just run amok and do whatever the hell it likes. Congress has no interest, except, aside for a few congressmen that are actually willing to voice their opinion, get up there and say that they don't like what's going on in Washington. But aside from those people, they do not care whatever the federal government wants to do. They just let them do what they want to do. For the past 3.5 years, they have allowed the Biden administration to rule us by decree instead of ruling us by law. They just make these rules and all these propositions for these agencies, from the DEA to the ATF to the EPA and the Department of Education, and all these places to implement rules that act like laws, with no check whatsoever from Congress, with no check whatsoever from the Supreme Court. I say whatsoever from the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has struck down a couple of these rules that have been put out, but they just implement these rules. Congress opposes these rules, and they keep them in place anyway. Look at what they're doing around the energy sector, for God's sakes. They are trying to shut down coal-fired power plants all over the country by 2030 if they don't install technology that's not even fully developed yet. There's no time to install this technology, but they want these coal-fired power plants to shut down, which mostly affects red states. They are cutting production of natural gas, which is going to affect natural gas-powered power plants, which is going to raise the costs for everyday Americans. I've said it before, the Biden administration is trying to destroy the country. It's slightly hyperbolic, but they are. Look what the economy is doing. Look what the southern border is doing. It's just getting crazy out there. Their foreign policy, they're just letting wars happen all over the place, right? Like, we have been responsible for stopping many wars. There was no new wars under Donald Trump. I know that may be slightly naive to say, but it goes a whole lot deeper than that. But we've allowed the federal government to just run amok.
The chair recognizes himself. Government's not supposed to change the rules without a vote of Congress. Executive branch executes the laws, the legislative branch passes the laws. But when you bypass that format, which is exactly what the ATF has done, you get all kinds of bad things. First, it was the pistol brace rule. November 26, 2012, the ATF told the inventor of the pistol brace, quote, he would not be subject to the National Firearms Act. But last year, they changed the rule. After 12 years, changed the rule. The rule, by the way, the pistol brace was put together to help disabled veterans be able to shoot, be able to practice and shoot at the range. Now, with the rule change, if you don't turn it in, get rid of it, you become a felon. Then it was a policy change that the ATF enacted. The ATF now says if a federal firearms licensee makes a mistake on the form, even if it's a clerical mistake, well, that now equals a, quote, willful falsifying of records, and they could lose their license. In fact, 157 FFLs lost their license last year in this gotcha game that the ATF is playing with people who are in the business of selling firearms. And the pressure to deal with what the ATF comes out and finds you made some mistake on a form, many people are just voluntarily giving up their FFL. 24 in 2021, 69 in 2022, 80 people last year gave up their license versus dealing with the hassle from the agency that's supposed to help them comply, not put them out of business. And finally, there's the new definition of who actually needs a federal firearms license. Since 1968, the definition said it had to be your principal livelihood in the business of selling firearms. You needed that. If you were doing that, you needed an FFL. But this past Monday, new definition was put in place. It said if you're earning a profit, ATF can't really define what that means. You sell one gun to your cousin, made $10, made $50 on the sale of a gun, 2 guns to someone, 10 guns. In fact, they couldn't even tell tell the court how it works, this new definition. When you make up the rules as you go, bad things happen. You lose your livelihood for a clerical error. You become a felon for having a pistol brace they told you was legal for 12 years. And you might even get shot.
But this problem goes well beyond the ATF. It goes well beyond the EPA or the Department of Education. This is every single department. They're imposing these rules that act like laws that will turn people into felons if they go against these rules or don't comply with these rules. From everywhere, from corporate America all the way to the farmers of America with the EPA. They're trying to eliminate internal combustion engines, new sales for those. Right? Like no more cars that's not electric. We don't have the infrastructure for all these electric vehicles. They're trying to do the exact same thing with semi-trucks. We don't even have a full-size electric semi-truck operation yet. That's outright insane. But they're just trying to change these rules to pander to a tiny minority. Some people call that tyranny of the minority. And that's exactly what the Biden administration is doing. He's pandering to small minorities of climate zealots or these people that want to kill their babies in abortion and all this other stuff and imposing these rules on everybody and forcing people to comply. And Congress isn't doing a damn thing to stop them. I've said it before, Congress is the most powerful institution in this country. They don't wield the power that they have. They'll get up there in front of cameras like Jim Jordan just did and say, yeah, we need to do this and we need to do that and we need to stop the federal government, and this is outrageous for them to do. But when it comes to actually doing stuff, we can't get other members of Congress to go along with that. And what we've seen coming out of Congress, coming out of the federal government, is absolute insanity. $1.7 trillion deficit spending. This is coming from the people who are there who are supposed to appropriate. When the federal government gives you their budget for the fiscal year and you see that it's $1.7 trillion more than what you take in, you're supposed to say, no, this is a terrible idea. We can't do this. We would be spending money that we don't have. For what reason? Right? They don't want to cut anything for some reason. I don't know why. And then on top of that, they add all these pet projects and all this pork. Different congressmen in different areas. There's 435 of them. And all of them want something for their district so they can get reelected. Instead of actually fighting the fiscal irresponsibility of the federal government, they just say, that's fine as long as I get what I want from my constituents so I can come back to Washington, get voted back in to an elected office instead of being held to account. And nobody calls this out.
I get that we're in divided government. I didn't want to get everything, right? I mean, I wanted to, but I knew I wouldn't get everything I wanted. But you know what I wanted? I wanted some sense of sanity on spending, some sense of sanity on the border, some sense of sanity on any of the issues the American people actually care about. And we got none of that. We got a doubling down on the very thing that the people who send me to Washington, and I believe the vast majority of Texans and Americans, are frustrated with. When I went to Washington as a staffer 20 years ago, the national debt was $6 trillion. I left town, went back to Texas, did a bunch of stuff. I come back in Congress, we're at $34.5 trillion. Both parties are equally to blame over that time. Both parties. The Uniparty, the entire establishment in Washington, keeps spending money we don't have, racking up debt, to advance policies that are undermining their safety and well-being. Wide open borders. You know, we got Laken Riley, who dies because of mass parole policies, releasing people into the United States. That man was released under those policies against law. She dies. We've got hundreds of examples of like that. Texans, people all across the country. We do nothing to secure the border. Zero.
Yeah.
That's the problem that the American people are looking at, and they're frustrated about it. So, yeah, I'd oppose the bill. And you asked what I would have done? I would have stuck with the bipartisan caps that were passed on a majority basis out of the House and the Senate. I would have passed a CR that would have triggered the caps. We could have constrained spending. We would have kept defense flat. We would have cut the bureaucracy, and then we could have got busy trying to negotiate on border security.
You know, that's my favorite congressman right there, Chip Roy, because he's constantly railing against all of his colleagues in Congress. He's constantly saying this is ridiculous. This is outright insanity. And he's absolutely right. He votes no on almost every freaking thing. Because of that reason, because he's tired of seeing the lobby interest in Washington, D.C. constantly getting their way, if you will. The congressmen and women, they don't vote in the interests of their constituents. They only vote in the interests of the corporate America in this country. It's outright insanity. These people have so much institutional persuasion, if you will, to just get these congressmen and women to vote against the interests of the people they're supposed to be there to represent. So that's why I'm constantly saying, go to congress.gov, look up your congressman, check out their voting record. You will most likely be absolutely appalled at how they vote and what they vote in the interests of. It's absolute insanity. And like I said, it's not only that. It's the fact that the federal government, the Biden administration, but it's not just the Biden administration, the federal government itself has been weaponized against the American people. I know that might be one of those trigger words or whatever, weaponized against the American people, but that's exactly the best way to describe it, because that's what they're doing. They're making these rules to make your life harder. And for what reason? I have no idea what the reason is. It's not going to make us safer. It's not going to make us more prosperous. It's only going to make us more poor and only make us less free. But I think I've rambled on for long enough on this one. I got a bit of an announcement right quick. I'm going on vacation, so my uploads might be a little bit splotchy. I'm going to try to still post 2 videos a day, but I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do that. We're going to Tampa, so anybody out there from Tampa, I'll be in Tampa for a little while, so I just wanted to get that out there right quick. Y'all let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comments section. That's all I got for this one, y'all. I want to thank everybody for watching, and y'all try to have a good day and stay legitical. Peace.